Hi everyone, Mrs. V here, and today we are going to continue with our IUPAC nomenclature. Today we are going to name the amines. So let's get that whiteboard on and get naming. Amine nomenclature can be a little bit tricky, so we're going to be really careful to do plenty of examples to get our skills up and running on this. The amino group is generally written as NH2. Amines are just one of the nitrogen-containing organic compounds. We also have nitro compounds, we have amides, but we're going to focus just on the amines today. So amines are either classified as primary, secondary, or tertiary, and this depends on how many alkyl groups that nitrogen is attached to. If the nitrogen is attached to one alkyl group, then we have a primary amine. If the nitrogen is attached to two alkyl groups, then we have a secondary amine. And if that is attached to three alkyl groups, that nitrogen, then we have a tertiary amine. Now, we always use the suffix amine, so we might have methanamine, ethanamine, propanamine, etc. However, the naming rules are a little bit different when you're dealing with primary, secondary, and tertiary amines. So we're going to look at those rules one group at a time. The primary amines first. Their naming is very similar to the way we name the alcohols, but we're going to obviously use the suffix amine instead of ol. So we had a hydroxyl-bearing carbon when we were naming alcohols, so let's have an amino-bearing carbon, and that must be included in the parent chain. So let's run through some examples. First of all, let's identify that carbon that bears the amino group. And let's find the longest carbon chain that contains that. This is obviously 2, so this one is ethanamine. Pause the video, have a go at the next one. All right, so you identified the amino-bearing carbon, you found the longest carbon chain, and this was 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons, so this is butanamine. However, unlike ethanamine, butanamine is going to need a number to show where the amino group is, because the amino group could be, on the first or the second carbon atom. This time it's on the first, so this is butan 1-amine. Let's have a look at this next example, and the amino-bearing carbon here is not on the end of the chain, but we can still name it. Here we want to number the chain so that the amino group gets the lowest number, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And this time the amino group is on carbon number 2, so this is butan 2-amine. Attached groups are listed in the same way as we would for alcohols. So here we have our amino-bearing carbon. Let's find that longest carbon chain that contains it. Let's number the chain so that the amino group gets the lowest number. Now, attached to this, we have a methyl group. So the methyl group is on number 2, the amine is on number 1. So this is going to be 2-methyl. 6 carbons is hexane, 1-amine. The same thing applies for attached groups that are not alkyl groups. So here I'm just going to make this really clear. I'm just going to make that line all black so that we don't get any confusion. The amino-bearing carbon is here. The longest carbon chain that contains that amino group is 2 carbons. We have to give the amino group number 1. So this one would be 2-chloro, ethane 1-amine. What do you do though if you've got 2 amino groups? Well, in the same way that 2 alcohol groups made it a diol, 2 amino groups is going to make it diamine. So we're going to find the amino-bearing carbon. There are going to be 2 of them this time because we have 2 amino groups. Circle that longest carbon chain. It doesn't really matter because this molecule is symmetrical and the amino groups are on the ends. It doesn't matter which way you number the chain. So this has 6 carbons, so it's hexane. It's a diamine, but we need to say where the 2 amino groups are. So it's hexane 1,6-diamine. Let's have a look at the secondary amines now. The naming is a little bit different here. We're going to choose the longest carbon chain that's attached to the nitrogen atom, and that is going to give us our amine suffix. But we're going to list the other alkyl group as a prefix. So let's have a look at our examples. First of all, we've got to find the longest carbon chain that's attached to the nitrogen. In this case, this is an ethyl group. So this is ethanamine, and it's a methyl ethanamine. But the way we actually list the name is we have the prefix preceded with an N in italics. Now, I use a capital N, but you will see a lowercase n in some cases. So here we've got our ethanamine and we have our methyl group attached, which makes this N methyl ethanamine. A little bit unusual, a new way to perform our naming. I want you to pause the video and try the next one. How did you go? The longest carbon chain here is a butyl, so this is a butanamine. It has a methyl group attached. So this is N methyl butanamine. It's actually butan 1-amine. Let's have a look at this next example. What about if we're looking at a skeletal formula? Again, simply a matter choosing the longest carbon chain, working out what's attached. So this is this time an ethyl, and our longest chain is 1, 2, 3. So that's propan 1-amine. So this is N-ethyl propan 1-amine. Now, when it comes to tertiary amines, we're just doing an extension of what we did with the secondary amines. You choose the longest carbon chain to have the suffix amine, and the other 2 chains are named as alkyl groups. Both of them have to be preceded with an N in italics, and they're listed in alphabetical order. Let's do some examples. So in our first example here, our longest carbon chain is here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is butanamine. What we have attached to this, we have an ethyl group and we have a methyl group. So in alphabetical order, ethyl comes before methyl. So this is N-ethyl, then N-methyl, and butan-1-amine. Pause the video. I want you to try the next one. Okay, let's have a look. Longest carbon chain. Here it is, 1, 2, 3. It's a propanamine. What's attached to it? Both of them are methyl groups. So this is a dimethyl propan-1-amine, but both of the methyl groups have to get an N. So this is N, N, dimethyl propan-1-amine. Okay, what about the next one? Now this is a little bit tricky because we've got two equal contenders for the longest carbon chain. What are we going to do? Well, this is an ethanamine, and just one of those ethyls has to go into the prefix. So we're going to consider our attached methyl group, and one of the ethyls will become an attachment, and it's an ethanamine. So this is N-ethyl, N-methyl, ethanamine. Let's have a look at this final example. Again, we're going to find the longest carbon chain that bears that amino group, which is 1, 2, 3. So this is a propan, but it's a propan-2-amine. It has two methyl groups attached to it. So this is N, dimethyl propan-2-amine. I hope you experienced some success in naming those amines. And if you do feel a little bit more confident about naming the amines now, then please consider giving the video a like. And as always, to learn even more about chemistry, get onto my channel, subscribe, watch a few more videos, and you will be smashing it. I'm going to see you guys in the next video.